I am a purchased concubine. Unlike other concubines, I am tasked with serving two young masters. They are twins. The elder master, having recently embraced a more indulgent lifestyle, wed the beloved young lady of his heart. Their affection for one another is profound, rendering my presence somewhat superfluous. The elder master personally forced poison down my throat, uttering, "Jinju, forgive me, but the mistress does not wish to see you." Upon my demise, the younger master, who had never so much as touched me, sighed before my grave. "Foolish Shinju, in your next life, keep your distance from my brother." Thus, upon my rebirth, I resolutely declined to be elevated by the elder master as a concubine. Turning instead to the younger master, I shed my status as a slave and fled. The younger master, infuriated, seized me, exclaiming, "Is your mind solely occupied with my brother, leaving no room for me?" In less than a month after the young mistress of the household married in, she fell ill. As in my previous life, the physician proclaimed that her constitution was frail, making conception exceedingly difficult. The young master softly consoled his wife within the room, his words alluding to my presence. I understood all too well that they were once again contemplating the idea of surrogacy. The maidservant, Kai Wei, shot me a disdainful glare, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she berated, "You shameless wretch. Not only do you cling to the young master daily, but you also evoke pity from our young mistress. And now they wish to elevate you to the status of a concubine. Bah, you temptress." At that moment, the young master emerged from behind the curtain, playfully teasing, "Who has incited our little Kai Wei's ire? With that tempestuous demeanor, you resemble a blooming lotus." Kai Wei immediately fell silent, blushing as she curtsied and stepped inside with delicate strides. I followed closely behind, only to be halted by the young master, who playfully grasped my waist. "Remember to wait for me tonight, little Pearl." My heart skipped a beat, and without a word, I hastily slipped into the room. The young mistress kindly invited me to sit. "Pearl, there is no need for formality. You will soon be a concubine. If there is anything you desire, do not hesitate to tell me." I dared not express my thoughts. In my previous life, after the young mistress uttered those words, I was promptly elevated to concubine status, enduring the young master's exclusive affection. He was infatuated with my form, frequently praising my voluptuous beauty, rendering him utterly enamored. I was initially pleased. For having been purchased from a heap of corpses, my purpose was to serve the two young masters of the Duke's estate, and to gain my master's favor was indeed a stroke of fortune. Little did I know, this fortune would cost me my life. When the young mistress first became pregnant, the young master, feeling pity for her inability to enjoy the blessings of rain and dew, would brazenly visit my chamber without regard for the time of day. Unfortunately, he was caught by the young mistress, who, fearing for her pregnancy, could no longer conceive. Yet, she forced herself to wear a smiling facade, encouraging the young master to visit me more frequently. When I became pregnant, she would lament before him, expressing her own yearning for a child. Thus, the young master seized my offspring and bestowed it upon her. I could not voice my objections, helplessly watching as my 10-month-old child recognized another as its mother. The young mistress remained unsatisfied, weeping before the young master, alleging that I harbored ill will towards her in raising my child, claiming I sought to usurp her role. She had been the young master's cherished beauty for several years. A few tears from her, and the young master would willingly sacrifice anything for her. Consequently, one fateful night, following our intimate encounter, as I lay powerless to resist, he personally forced a poison-laden wine down my throat. "Pearl, forgive me. I cannot bear to part with your body, but you ought not to compete with the mistress and cause her distress." Racked with excruciating pain in my abdomen, I screamed in agony. Yet no one came to my aid. After I perished, my lifeless body was rolled in a straw mat and discarded at a mass grave. It was the second young master, who had always shunned my presence, who commanded his men to bury me properly, establishing a grave for me. Foolish Pearl. Be wiser in your next life and keep your distance from the elder brother. The young mistress instructed me to serve the young master well that evening. I feigned illness, claiming my monthly cycle had begun, rendering me unclean and unable to fulfill my duties. The young mistress's face brightened instantly. "Look at you. If you feel unwell, why come here to serve? Quickly return and rest." She even bestowed upon me a plethora of tonics, urging me to recuperate swiftly in order to attend to the young master and contribute to the family's lineage. Kai Wei, escort Auntie Pearl back. The young mistress's gaze was devoid of warmth, likely ordering Kai to accompany me back to ascertain the truth of my condition. Throughout the journey, Kai Wei incessantly scolded me. Look at you, so spineless. No wonder you captivate the young master's thoughts day after day. Bah. Shameless. Our young mistress is kind-hearted to permit you to become a concubine, but do not let it go to your head. The young master's heart will forever belong to our young mistress. Do not harbor delusions of grasping what is not yours. In my previous life, I misinterpreted Kai Wei's words as jealousy over my favored position. Now I realize that they were, in truth, the young mistress's covert instructions, delivered through Kai Wei's mouth as a warning. What woman would willingly share her husband with another? I feigned disinterest, distracted by the arduous path ahead. I longed to escape. Yet, as a bonded servant, I had no means of fleeing. Kai Wei abruptly ceased her tirade, her tone filled with astonishment. Is that the second young master? He actually left the estate. My heart jolted, and I swiftly followed her gaze. The face, identical to that of the young master, was shadowed by a solemn expression as a cold-faced attendant pushed his wheelchair. It was none other than the second young master. I disregarded Kai and hurried over, lifting my skirts. Second young master, please wait. He halted, turning to gaze at me, his brow slightly furrowing upon recognizing my presence. Unlike the young master, this second young master, burdened by disability, had never shown me any affection. This was due to a misunderstanding during my first encounter, where I mistakenly called him by the young master's name while attending him. Consequently, he had banished me from his vicinity after only one night, refusing to allow me near his quarters again. I was then claimed by the young master and had remained in his service ever since. Kai Wei, terrified of the second young master, dared not approach, which inadvertently worked to my advantage. The same face, when set upon the second young master, held an air of elegance and nobility, untouched by the mundane. I had likely been muddled in my thoughts to confuse him with the lascivious young master. The second young master's voice bore a hint of impatience. What is it? Speak quickly. Ever since his leg injury, he had preferred not to move about in public. Encountering Kai and me must have been a mere coincidence. Such an opportunity was rare. I boldly stepped forward, grasping the azure sleeve of his robe, and whispered my plea. Second young master, I implore you to save me. I do not wish to be the young master's concubine. A flicker of intrigue appeared in his cold gaze. There was hope. I leaned in closer, my chest brushing against his legs, my face flushed as I bit my lip enticingly. That night, you mentioned that I should distinguish between you and the young master before returning. As you can see, I am now able to return, am I not? To thwart the young master, I had donned a rather modest attire today, revealing no trace of spring-s allure. Given the second young master's peculiar temperament, I was uncertain if he would take the bait. Our gazes locked, and my heart raced. I recalled how the second young master had once been a dashing figure, capturing the hearts of countless young ladies, only to suffer a tragic accident that left him disabled. Subsequently, the young mistress had rescinded her engagement with him, opting instead for the young master. Since then, the second young master had shunned the company of women, his temperament becoming erratic. Many maidservants, summoned to his bed, had been met with punishment and cast out of the estate, until I was brought in to serve him and the young master. The first night he laid eyes on me, his gaze had been filled with astonishment, a stark contrast to the calm demeanor he now exhibited, akin to a still pond. His piercing gaze left me trembling, yet I gritted my teeth, refusing to retreat an inch. Compared to the young master, the second young master's realm offered at least a glimmer of hope. Moreover, in my previous life, he had visited my grave annually, indicating that I held some significance in his heart. Lost in thought, I was suddenly roused by the second young master's slow declaration. Then come back. A surge of emotion welled within me, and I nearly knelt to express my gratitude when he raised a hand to stop me. Though his figure appeared frail, the strength in his grip startled me. I could feel the calluses on his fingers through the fabric, a warm and coarse sensation. Enough. Push me back. It's time for dinner. The cold-faced attendant retreated as I hastily rose to take over the task of pushing the second young master back to his quarters. Not far behind, I heard Kaiwei stamp her foot, loudly exclaiming, "Auntie Pearl, the young master is still waiting for you." I did not look back. Until I was officially recognized, I was not Auntie Pearl. As for where the young master would sleep or whom he would elevate to concubine status in the future, it was of no concern to me. After serving the second young master his evening meal, I lingered in his room, refusing to leave. He did not send me away either, tending to his own needs as he called for water to cleanse himself. Taking a deep breath, I navigated around the screen. Approaching the bathing tub, my cheeks flushed as I asked shyly, "May I assist the young master with bathing?" The second young master's expression remained unchanged as he readily tossed me a handkerchief, tacitly permitting my actions. Were it the eldest master, I would not need to exert myself to entice him. He would already have me in his grasp, ready to proceed. However, facing the second young master, I was uncertain of his temperament and thus diligently attended to his bath. As I glided the cloth across his robust chest, the solid sensation made my cheeks flush and my heart race, reminiscent of that night when he held me close. As I prepared to continue, the second young master seized my hand, his voice husky. "Do you serve your elder brother in such a manner as well?" Naturally, I did not. Typically, it was the eldest master who attended to my washing. Yet, I dared not voice this and merely shook my head gently. The second young master tightened his grip, eliciting a pained gasp from me as I felt as though my bones might be crushed. In the next moment, I was yanked by the arm and tossed into the bath, sputtering as water filled my mouth and nose, my clothes drenched and clinging to my body. The thought that this was a man's bathwater made me feel nauseous, and as I emerged from the water, I leaned over the edge of the tub and retched. The second young master's tone turned icy. "Do you find me repugnant? If he were to drink my bathwater, would he not feel the same?" Before I could retort, he leaned in from behind, deftly unfastening my wet garments and whispered in my ear, "Tell me, who am I?" My face flushed with embarrassment as I softly replied, "Second young master, Yun Jie." Throughout the night, we remained awake. The second young master relentlessly compelled me to utter his name, leaving my voice hoarse by dawn. As slumber approached, I was seized with dread. Would the second young master, so vengeful, truly keep me? Upon awakening the next day, I found a neatly arranged set of pristine garments beside me. The second young master sat by the window, engrossed in a book. Upon hearing my movements, he cast a fleeting glance my way before calmly diverting his gaze, a stark contrast to his fervent and loquacious demeanor of the previous night. "Your belongings have been tidied. Retrieve them yourself, and if anything is missing, summon Xiao AI to procure it." Outside the screen, a sprightly maid curtsied to me. "I am Xiao AI at your service, madam." I had become the first woman in the second young master's courtyard, sparking much speculation throughout the estate. The princess was overjoyed and sent a matron to bestow numerous gifts upon me. Accompanied by Xiao AI, I went to express my gratitude, only to encounter the eldest master and his wife mid-flirtation. Their expressions soured upon seeing me. The eldest master scrutinized my form with an amused smile, his gaze more unabashed than ever, while his wife displayed a complex expression and spoke with a subtle tone. I never imagined that a humble pearl would possess such fortune, compelling my second brother to bend the knee. Kaiwei glared at me with intensity, refraining from her usual vitriol, likely due to the presence of the eldest master. I noticed her flushed visage and the telltale marks upon her neck, and I understood. Just as in a past life, the eldest master had covertly taken Kaiwei as his own. It seemed the eldest mistress remained unaware. Lowering my head, I performed a courtesy alongside Xiao AI. To the eldest mistress, I am merely the second young master's subordinate maid. Fortune does not apply to me. The eldest mistress was momentarily taken aback, evidently recalling the situation, and her countenance soured as she ceased conversing with me. Such a refined lady of status would naturally regard me as unclean. The eldest master, however, chuckled, shaking his head in apparent sorrow. "Little Pearl, your heart is quite ruthless. That night, I waited for you far too long." Upon hearing this, the eldest mistress turned pale, gripping her handkerchief as a fit of coughing overtook her. The eldest master immediately shifted his attention away from me, turning to express concern for his delicate wife. I silently took my leave with Xiao AI, heading to meet the princess. Before I departed, The second young master had specifically instructed me to bring some delicacies to the princess to win her favor, stating that my continued presence in his quarters depended on her approval. The princess was surrounded by a throng of ladies, sitting regally within, her beauty reminiscent of a celestial being. The second young master's untainted demeanor was surely inherited from her. Her gaze fell upon me, filled with intrigue. No wonder Yunjie cannot forget you. It appears you are a beauty shrouded in dust. My cheeks flushed as I presented the food. These were prepared by the second young master himself. Please do sample them. As the maid opened the food box, the princess leaned in to inspect its contents, a smile gracing her features. How rare! This young man has finally taken the time to please me. Just as I served the princess a morsel, the eldest master entered, accompanied by his wife. Mother is enjoying a snack? Just in time. My wife has prepared a soup to cleanse your palate. The eldest mistress smiled gently, not waiting for the princess to respond as she presented the soup. My skills are lacking. I hope you do not find it displeasing, mother. The princess's demeanor towards the eldest mistress was somewhat cool, yet she nodded in acknowledgement. I stepped back to give the eldest mistress space, but unbeknownst to me, someone nudged me, causing me to collide with her, spilling the soup onto the floor and splattering it upon both the princess and the eldest mistress. I felt a burn upon my arm but disregarded the pain as I hurried to assist the princess. Panic surged within me. Had I ruined the second young master's instructions? Would I still be permitted to remain in his courtyard? Perhaps even in the estate itself would become a challenge. Who had pushed me? I glanced back to see Kaiwei wearing a malicious grin. She had received orders from the eldest mistress to eliminate me. The eldest master's expression darkened as he commanded someone to fetch a physician, then spoke sternly. This wretched maid, Pearl, acts so recklessly that she has caused injury to both mother and the eldest mistress. Seize her at once. I anxiously turned to the princess, who frowned deeply, remaining silent, likely in considerable pain. The maids restrained me, administering several strikes, before casting me into a storage room to languish. For several days, the second young master did not appear. He must have been greatly disappointed in me. As a dutiful son, he was likely deliberating with the princess on how to deal with my transgression, perhaps even contemplating selling me to some disreputable place. What value does a maid's life hold? My wounds festered, and in the throes of fever, I continuously pondered strategies for survival, yet every path seemed a dead end. Just then, the door creaked open. The eldest master stepped in, a smile playing upon his lips. I instinctively recoiled, and as he turned to close the door, I hastily removed the remaining hairpin from my head. No matter what, I could never align myself with the eldest master again. He turned to appraise me, his eyes filled with desire and urgency, which made me feel utterly repulsed. Little Pearl, come here. I have missed you so much these past days that my entire body aches. I pressed against the wall, warily brandishing the pin at him. Eldest master, tread carefully. I am now the property of the second young master. He laughed heartily. And so what? You were originally bought for the purpose of serving both me and my second brother. Do you truly think of yourself as some virtuous lady? He continued. Besides, I look just like my second brother. Did you never think of me when you were with him? His words humiliated me to the point I could barely lift my head, yet I clung to the pin, choking back my pleas. Eldest master, I beg you, spare me. If the second young master and the princess find out, I will be cast out. He approached and wrenched the pin from my grip, forcefully pinning me to the mat, kissing me indiscriminately. Dearest Pearl, do not fear. If you remain by my side, you will not be cast away. My wife has already consented to elevate you to the status of concubine. What more could you desire? Have I not satisfied you sufficiently? I struggled and evaded him, the pain from my wounds rendering me nearly unconscious as I shouted instinctively, Second young master Yunjie, save me. With a loud crash, the door burst open. The second young master, silhouetted against the light, sat in his wheelchair, coldly staring at us. I request, dear brother, that you remove yourself from my woman. The eldest master appeared displeased. Do not be so petty. You were the first to have her. I have not complained. So why must I be denied a turn? The words felt as if they stripped me bare before the world, and with tear-filled eyes, I cast a fleeting glance at the second young master before lowering my gaze once more. A person of his stature and grace was someone I could never hope to deserve. The second young master's voice, cold and clear, cut through the air. What was in the past is past. Henceforth, she shall be my wife. I implore you, brother, refrain from uttering such words again. The eldest young master, taken aback, exclaimed, Have you lost your senses? How could she possibly be worthy of being your wife? She is but our shared maid. I too found the second young master's declaration utterly bewildering, unsure how to respond, yet a flicker of unidentifiable hope ignited within me, dulling the pain in my heart. The second young master furrowed his brow and retorted coldly, You are mistaken. She was purchased for us to choose from as a concubine. Our mother decreed that whoever desires her may have her. I want her. She is mine. Was it truly so? A lightness enveloped me as the eldest young master, his demeanor darkening, turned away, his gaze flitting between me and the second young master, a mocking smile gracing his lips. Indeed, my younger brother seems fond of competing with me for possessions, 2 women and the title of heir. Oh, I almost forgot, you cannot inherit the title, as it is mine alone. Very well, let this woman be yours. He approached the door, patting the second young master on the shoulder, whispering, After all, apart from that foolish girl Pearl, I doubt any other woman would take a liking to a cripple like you. My wife, on the other hand, prefers a man of robust health like me. The second young master's grip on his wheelchair tightened. After the eldest young master departed, he wheeled himself back inside, gathering the discarded garments and tossing them to me. I hurriedly donned my clothes, yet tears streamed down uncontrollably. The second young master said nothing, allowing me to weep for a considerable time before finally stating, Enough. Let us go. I stood there, momentarily stunned, and through my sobs, I queried, Do you still wish to have me, second young master? He shot me a disdainful glance and replied, You truly are a fool. The second young master, it seemed, still found me lacking. I dared not speak further, hastily drying my tears, adjusting my attire, and guiding him back to the courtyard. In the days that followed, I remained quietly in the courtyard to recuperate. The second young master had someone bring me medicine, but thereafter, he paid me no mind. Nor did he mention anything about me becoming his wife again. My final hopes slowly faded. It became apparent that his prior declarations had merely been to provoke the eldest young master. The kindness he had shown in a past life, offering to bury my remains and tend to my grave, was likely born from the pity of one in power. I should not have harbored foolish dreams of the second young master as my salvation. Not long after my injuries healed, a servant came with news. The eldest young master's wife is with child, and the princess consort is overjoyed. A family banquet will be held today, with the prince in attendance. The second young master is requested to join. The second young master insisted I accompany him, and remembering the eldest young master and his wife, I gritted my teeth and adorned myself brightly. As we stepped outside, the second young master regarded me, a glimmer of surprise in his eyes, and unexpectedly praised, Not bad. Anticipating what lay ahead, I lowered my gaze and obediently pushed his wheelchair. Upon arriving at the main courtyard, an unmistakable hush fell over the gathering. The eldest young master's eager gaze was fixed upon me, utterly oblivious to the icy demeanor of his wife beside him. The princess consort, still harboring resentment from previous events, was not warm towards me, yet she did not chastise me either, merely instructing us to take our seats. However, I dared not sit. Noticing my hesitation, the prince turned towards me, assessing me before chuckling, Isn't this the beautiful maid from the eldest young master's household? What brings her to the second young master's side now? Few were able to respond to the princess' inquiry. It was the eldest young master who chuckled lightly. She is merely a woman. My younger brother desired her, so I relinquished her. The prince cast a knowing glance in my direction, but said nothing further. The eldest young master's wife then stood to ease the tension. Forgive us, esteemed father and mother, Pearl is rather proud-spirited. She did not wish to be a concubine and thus sought refuge in my younger brother's quarters. She cast a fleeting glance at the second young master before swiftly diverting her gaze. My younger brother is kind-hearted indeed to have taken in this disloyal maid. A chill ran through me. The eldest young master's wife seemed intent on using this opportunity to incite the prince and princess consort's disdain for me, hoping to have me cast out and sold. Yet I was merely a servant, with no authority to engage in the conversation of my betters. No matter how anxious I felt, I could not speak out in rebuttal. Interestingly, the prince appeared intrigued, mentioning my name. Pearl? Is what the eldest young master's wife claims true? I took a deep breath and curtsied gracefully. To answer your highness, I am but a servant who followed the orders of the eldest young master's wife to serve the second young master. The eldest young master's wife deemed me unworthy to be a concubine for the eldest young master, yet suitable to attend to the second young master. The discord between the eldest and second young masters was no secret. I was not at all worried that the second young master would expose me. Indeed. He merely snorted lightly and replied indifferently, I can only accept my sister-in-law's goodwill. After all, Pearl was mine from the very beginning. The color drained from the eldest young master's wife's face as she hurriedly glanced at the prince and princess consort, both of whom wore displeased expressions. She had already severed her engagement with the second young master to marry the eldest young master, causing a rift between the brothers that had yet to mend. Now, the turmoil arose once again because of her, and the prince and princess consort could hardly tolerate it. The eldest young master shot a dark glare at his wife. His voice low with irritation, I had no idea you were so concerned with the affairs of my younger brother. The eldest young master's wife, frightened, shook her head, adopting a pitiable demeanor. Kai Wei, fiercely loyal to her, immediately leapt to her defense, vociferously denouncing me. You shameless wretch! Do not sully our young mistress's name. It is you, in fact, who is lowly, having crawled into the beds of both young masters. How can you claim to be under her direction? I knelt on the ground, a slow smile forming on my lips. It was successful. The steward stepped forward to reprimand. The prince and princess consort have yet to speak. Who do you think you are to tarnish the ears of our masters with such talk? Someone, take this reckless maid away. Kai Wei, realizing the gravity of the situation, turned pale and knelt, pleading for mercy. Your Highness, your esteemed consort, I was wrong. I merely could not stand by as Pearl spoke such nonsense to deceive you both. It was a moment of indiscretion. I beg for your forgiveness. No one came to her aid. At this point, the eldest young master's wife could not save her. Unless... Kai Wei struggled against the maids, desperately shouting, Eldest young master, save me. I carry your child. You cannot abandon me. A stone cast into still waters created ripples. The family banquet could no longer proceed. The princess consort ordered someone to check on Kai Wei, who indeed was found to be over 2 months pregnant. The eldest young master's wife, eyes brimming with tears, bit her lip hard to refrain from confronting the eldest young master on the spot. As the head matriarch, it was taboo to be jealous. The eldest young master felt a fleeting moment of guilt, but quickly regained his composure. He believed he had given his heart to his wife. Having affairs with other women was inconsequential. Moreover, the ambiguous words exchanged between his wife and the second young master earlier had left him displeased. Thus he did not clarify immediately. An unspoken rift now lay between them. I stood quietly behind the second young master, observing their forced smiles and hypocritical facades. A sense of satisfaction swelling within me. It was their own folly, and they had no one to blame but themselves. The second young master calmly added another jab. Had I known my elder brother was to receive such joyful news, I would have brought 2 gifts today. At this, the prince shot the eldest young master a glare, chastising him, frolicking with maids, utterly lacking ambition. He then swept away in disappointment, likely disillusioned. Following this, the title of heir would surely be reconsidered by the prince. The eldest young master's expression darkened, his eyes filled with malice as he glared at me and the second young master before hastily pursuing the prince. The princess consort stayed behind, attempting to maintain order. Kai Wei was confined, to be dealt with post-delivery. However, based on my understanding of the eldest young master and his wife, I doubted Kai Wei would live to see that day. As for the accusations leveled against me by the eldest young master's wife, the princess consort deemed them as malicious intent, causing discord within the household. Ordered to remain in the courtyard to nurture the child, I was told there was no need for me to emerge unless absolutely necessary. After the banquet, the young mistress staggered as she was supported by her maid, passing by me with clenched teeth. I indeed underestimated you, Pearl. Were you aware that that wretched Kai Wei had climbed into bed with someone? I bowed my head respectfully, replying, Esteemed young mistress, I too was taken aback by Kai Wei's treachery. I hope you do not harbor anger. She only wished to alleviate your burdens." The young mistress's body stiffened, and with the support of her maid, she left in a fit of resentment. I later learned that this pregnancy was fraught with difficulties for her, and she might not carry it to term, just as in my previous life. Saiwei's offspring would soon prove useful. I had narrowly escaped calamity. Upon returning, I obediently knelt before the second young master to offer my apologies. I spoke out of turn at the banquet, leveraging your influence, and I beseech your punishment. His gaze was heavy as he grasped my chin, yet he inquired, "Is your injury healed?" I nodded. He withdrew his hand, his fingertips lingering for a brief moment. "Then you shall serve me diligently henceforth." The second young master grew increasingly interested in me. Though his words were icy, his touch was unexpectedly tender and gentle. I understood that he, like the eldest young master, viewed me merely as a plaything for his bed. I silently admonished myself to refrain from indulgence and to serve him dutifully, providing him with embroidered garments and cooking nourishing soups. The second young master never broached the subject of granting me a title, allowing me to remain in his quarters as a mere concubine. During this time, the princess sent several women to him, hoping he would select a few, but he dismissed them all. The princess then summoned me, urging me to persuade the second young master and promising, "If you can make I willing to marry, I shall free you from servitude and take you as a legitimate concubine." She had already chosen a bride for him, a remarried woman who did not mind his leg ailment and was both gentle and beautiful. Standing beside the second young master, she would surely be a delightful sight. I earnestly knelt in gratitude, saying, "Your Highness, I shall fulfill my duties. However, I do not wish to become a legitimate concubine. I only desire to leave the palace once I am freed from servitude." The princess appeared somewhat surprised, but acquiesced to my request. The second young master, however, did not return for 2 consecutive months. I heard he had accompanied the crown prince to the south for some matter of importance. The eldest young master seized the opportunity to act on behalf of the prince, intending to persuade the royal family to grant him the title of heir in the absence of the second young master, thus neglecting the matters of the inner courtyard. As I had anticipated, the young mistress, frail in health, soon set her sights on Kaiwei. She, despite her illness, approached the princess to plead for Saiwei's release and raised her concubine. Their bond was deep, bringing the eldest young master much joy. With his beautiful wife and favored concubine by his side, he was only lacking the title of heir to achieve completeness. Just then, the second young master returned. He had rescued the crown prince and solved a significant case, now possessing a respectable 5th-grade official title. Among the young aristocrats, he was regarded as having a boundless future. The crown prince personally visited the royal residence, lauding the second young master's unparalleled cleverness, which made the prince laugh heartily, his face brimming with pride. Throughout this, the eldest young master maintained a strained smile, his eyes filled with resentment, while the young mistress occasionally gazed at the second young master, lost in thought. After the banquet, I helped the inebriated second young master back, only to be intercepted by the young mistress midway. I intended to leave, but the second young master firmly grasped me, pulling me into his embrace. "Where do you think you're going? You're not an outsider." The scent of alcohol clouded my head, and I buried my face in his shoulder, wishing to be invisible. I only heard him impatiently ask, "If my sister-in-law has matters to discuss, can it wait?" I haven't seen Pearl in ages and wish to return to the courtyard with her soon. Such reckless words I had never heard him utter in the presence of others, indicating that he was quite drunk and in high spirits. I turned my face away, catching a glimpse of the young mistress forcing a smile, her tone melancholic. Do you truly hold me in such disregard? In the past, you treated me far better than you do Pearl. Whenever I saw your elder brother, I was always thinking of you." The second young master's expression remained unchanged. "Sister-in-law, be cautious with your words." The young mistress, pale-faced, stepped forward, her voice dripping with feigned vulnerability. Your brother wishes to harm you. I am here to warn you, please be careful. Seeing you so spirited tonight, I regret not being more assertive. If I were in your shoes, I would never allow myself to wither in the inner courtyard, nor take a concubine to hurt you. Would I? In recent times, the eldest young master had often spent nights with Kaiwei, neglecting the young mistress for quite some time. The promises once made had turned into a jest, and the young mistress was now perpetually despondent, harboring grievances against the eldest young master. I noticed her shadow lurking behind me and silently buried my head once more. The second young master scoffed, not responding to her words, his chest vibrating with suppressed emotion. "Brother, did my sister-in-law say you wished to harm me? Is it true?" The young mistress fell silent, stepping back only to collide with her husband. That night, the eldest young master, with a darkened expression, took the young mistress back. The couple quarreled fiercely, and during the scuffle, she fell to the ground, losing the child. The eldest young master was also taken aback. Throughout the night, the cries of the young mistress echoed through their courtyard. I felt as if I had returned to the night the eldest young master took away my child in my previous life. Once, I had felt pity for the young mistress, but she later took my child and incited the eldest young master to kill me. Now, I held not an ounce of compassion for her. Who would pity me in my plight? The second young master caressed my hair, holding me close, suggesting, "If you cannot sleep, perhaps I could assist you?" I shot him a glance of reproach. Outside, the wailing was incessant, yet he seemed unfazed, entirely oblivious to the affection he once held for the young mistress. It was evident that the affections of men were but fleeting whims. Seizing upon his relatively pleasant mood, I broached the topic the princess had instructed me to discuss. "The princess mentioned that you should consider taking a wife. Do you have any intentions in mind?" I expected him to respond with a cold refusal, as he had in the past. To my surprise, he fixed his gaze upon me, warmth flickering in his eyes, and replied softly, "The time has come. It is indeed time to prepare for marriage." A pang of pain shot through my heart, quickly replaced by composure. "Then I shall inform the princess to make early preparations." He rolled over, his words slurred. "You are no longer a servant, Pearl. Do not refer to yourself as such. Nor call me young master, just use my name. I enjoy hearing it." Did the second young master also know that I was about to be freed from servitude? I felt a surge of emotion. The second young master was indeed kinder, recognizing my efforts, unlike his brother, knowing I would soon leave the palace. His words bore an undercurrent of blessing. I tightened my embrace around him, catching my breath, and earnestly proclaimed, "Yunjiai, I shall pray for you every day, wishing you well." I conveyed the second young master's intention to marry to the princess, who, overjoyed, immediately returned my contract of servitude and ordered my release. She regarded me with a gentle smile. "I knew you would not disappoint me. Do you have further plans? Will you leave the palace?" I nodded firmly. "The second young master is aware, and he is happy for me." The princess appeared somewhat puzzled, but said nothing further, bestowing upon me several banknotes and gently advising, "If you encounter any difficulties, invoke the name of the royal residence. Both I and I will send assistance." As I prepared to bid farewell to the second young master, I learned he had just left, claiming he was preparing for his marriage. At last, a young lady was willing to marry him, and he must be quite delighted. Hence his enthusiasm regarding the wedding. A sense of melancholy washed over me as I shook my head, leaving behind the wedding gifts I had prepared, departing in the carriage sent by the princess. Henceforth, my destiny would be firmly in my own hands. Once I settled in a suitable place, I began to prepare for marriage, planning for the latter half of my life. After a series of encounters, I finally met someone who satisfied my expectations. He is a guard from a wealthy family, earning a considerable income each month. Coupled with the silver I received from the princess, it seems we can sustain our little household comfortably. I subtly revealed my past as a concubine maid, and to my relief, he did not seem to mind. Unlike other men, he did not display any impatience or desire. This indicated that he was indeed a decent individual. Thus, we began discussing the acquisition of property together. Along the way, he remained vigilant, ensuring my safety. A warmth flowed through my heart as I began to appreciate having a husband. On the night of our wedding, I sat on the bridal bed, the veil lifted from my face. Before me was a familiar visage, one I had not seen in a long time, gazing intently with a chilling smile gracing his lips. Startled, I instinctively recoiled and stammered, "Master." His expression darkened further as he pressed his voice low in anger, questioning, "Is your mind only occupied with my brother and not with me?" To my surprise, it was the second son. That was a relief. But then again, what is the second son doing here? Confusion engulfed me. By my calculations, he should have already wed that charming young lady and be accompanying her back to her family. The second son glared at me. What do you think? After a moment of contemplation, I suddenly realized and felt a pang of sympathy. Surely, the bride must have had a last-minute change of heart, fleeing from the marriage. The second son truly seemed to be a pitiful figure. I sighed and comforted him. Do not be disheartened, second son. If this bride does not cherish you, you can always seek another. He narrowed his eyes. Why would she not cherish me? The answer was evident. Undoubtedly, it was due to his physical disability. I stared at his perfectly straight legs, momentarily stunned, and asked hesitantly, Have your legs healed, second son? His demeanor softened slightly as he moved closer to sit down. They have not healed, he replied, lifting his wedding robe to show me. It turned out he had fashioned a metal brace for his legs, enabling him to walk like a normal person. I was taken aback and then realized the discomfort he must endure. I had noticed earlier how the metal frame had pressed into his skin. To move would require him to bear extraordinary pain. As he adjusted his robe, he tugged at the corners of his mouth. My bride has fled. And I can only surmise it is because she found my leg ailment unworthy of her. His tone was laced with melancholy. I attempted to reassure him. That cannot be true. If she genuinely cared, she would not mind your condition. Perhaps there are other reasons for her refusal. His brow furrowed and his tone turned icy. What reasons? I racked my brain for a suitable excuse, but could only stare blankly back at him. The second son scoffed. I knew it. You despise me for not being able to stand, unlike my brother, who can carry and serve you, giving you joy. What a ridiculous accusation. I glanced outside. Fearful that my current husband might overhear, my face flushed as I insisted, No, I have never looked down upon you, second son. His physical limitations were already a testament to his bravery. The thought of him having to support me was one I dared not entertain. Second son. You ought to leave quickly. If my husband hears, I may not survive the consequences. He rose, displeased, but instead of departing, he retrieved a cup of wine from the table. It is time for us to drink the wedding wine. I could no longer endure this and stood up from the bridal bed, firmly stating, Second son, I shall still address you as such because of the kindness you have shown me, but our relationship has ended. I have shed my status as a servant and am now a respectable woman. I truly wish to sever all ties with you. So please respect my wishes and release my husband. He held the cup of wine, seemingly suppressing his anger before speaking calmly, Your husband is me. I was incensed. Yoon Jae. This was the first time I spoke to him as an equal, no longer a servant. You clearly stated you would let me go. Why not you go back on your word? Have you bound my husband? Release him at once, or I shall report you to the authorities. He closed his eyes and asked each word deliberately, When did I say I would let you go? He and the eldest son were indeed two sides of the same coin, both devoid of scruples. Remembering the tender words he had whispered to me that night made me stomp my foot in embarrassment and anger. Release my husband immediately. I warn you. He is a proper guard from a wealthy family. Do not entertain any wicked thoughts, lest he seek retribution for your abuse of power. The second son furrowed his brow. A momentary flicker of confusion in his eyes, which quickly transformed into understanding. He then placed a hand on his forehead and began to laugh softly. Jinju. You truly are a foolish girl. There was no point in arguing with him. Release my husband. I insisted. Fixing my gaze on him as he set down the wine cup and sauntered out of the room, only to return leisurely with a marriage certificate. Placing it on the table. Look at the names inscribed there. I cast him a dubious glance, then lowered my eyes to see our names written together. After a stick of incense had burned down, I finally comprehended everything. The guard who was supposed to marry me was in fact sent by the second son to protect me. At that time, the second son had gone out to arrange our marriage, only to return and discover I had left, which had incensed him greatly. Coincidentally, during this time, the eldest lady mentioned the second son's name while ill. This led to a fight between the eldest son and the second son, leaving the latter bedridden and unable to search for me. Consequently, he had to dispatch guards to ensure my safety. Upon learning I was preparing for marriage, he disregarded his injuries and hurried to arrange our wedding. As he recounted this, the expression of anger on the second son's face began to crack, and he became more talkative. I had no idea you would travel such a long distance just to marry. If that is the case, why not marry me, Jinju? What do I mean to you? I took a step back, noticing the glimmer of tears in his eyes, and found myself unable to meet his gaze, murmuring, "Second son." As you can see, I am not particularly clever. All I seek is to avoid being trampled upon and to live a good life. You are of noble birth. While I am like grass, our stations are worlds apart. We are truly incompatible. What I meant was that I was unworthy of him. Yet he misinterpreted my words. Chuckling before choking on his emotions, Jinju, I am unworthy of loving you, and I know you must hate me, for it was I who drove you away that night, causing you to be taken by my brother and suffer public disgrace. But I realize my mistake. With that, he knelt before me. I rushed to help him up. But I could not budge him. He gazed up at me, Jinju. After that night, I have regretted it deeply. When I discovered you were taken by my brother, my heart felt like it was being sliced by a knife. Sometimes I think, do you only like my brother, which is why you mistook me for him? I admit I was jealous of my brother. He is healthy and can serve you with joy. I immediately covered his mouth. Enough, do not say any more. I forgive you. What kind of proper person apologizes by airing out romantic entanglements? He was unashamed, but I was embarrassed. Considering his efforts in retrieving my dignity, I reluctantly put the past behind us. However, this marriage could not proceed. As I pondered how to refuse him, I saw his eyes light up, the tears vanishing without a trace. He swiftly stood and took me into his arms, his voice calm yet taut. Then, let us not delay this moment of intimacy. W8. I stammered, my hands grasping the bed curtain as he held my fingers tightly. The second son intended to marry me, and not a single soul in the prince's mansion objected. When the princess saw me return, she was unsurprised and quickly arranged for our wedding. I became the second son's lady Jinju. Whenever I displayed any sign of reluctance, I was confined to bed for several days. Thus, I resigned myself to this life for the sake of my health. I paid my respects to the princess and saw the eldest lady, who I had not seen for a long time. She looked haggard, nearly reduced to a mere skeleton, appearing almost as if she were on the brink of death. Upon seeing me, she merely stirred her eyes slightly, uttering not a word, her gaze akin to a fathomless abyss, chilling to the bone. After extending her greetings, she claimed to be unwell and rose to depart. Subsequently, I learned from Xiao Ai that the eldest madam had quarreled with the eldest master on several occasions regarding a divorce, and it was she who initiated these disputes. Grieving over a miscarriage that rendered her unable to conceive again, she wept profusely and argued with the eldest master. Initially, he would comfort her, but as time wore on, his patience waned, and he informed her that once Saiwei's child was born, it would be entrusted to her care. To everyone's shock, the eldest madam resorted to poison, taking the life of Kaiwei, who had served her faithfully for many years. Though a servant's life may seem insignificant, it posed a considerable dilemma. Upon discovering this, the prince rebuked the eldest master for his inability to manage the household, deeming him utterly useless. Consequently, the title of heir fell to the second master, awaiting the formalities of the enthronement ceremony to declare him the legitimate heir. Years of meticulous planning came to naught, and the eldest master harbored a desire to eliminate the eldest madam, severing all ties with her. Yet, he refrained from divorce, as the eldest madam proclaimed with manic laughter her intention to wed the second master. The eldest master, determined to thwart her wishes, threatened her entire family, compelling her to behave as a proper eldest madam and cease her provocations. Thus, she manifested in her current state. Reflecting on her gaze directed at me, I could not help but shiver. It was truly unsettling. After the second master ascended to the title of heir, the eldest master fell into a complete silence. Occasionally encountering me, his demeanor was indifferent, as if he had suddenly adopted a more composed disposition overnight. Fearing that this calm might precede a storm, I cautioned the second master to remain vigilant. He reassured me that all was well. However, it was not long before he fell victim to an assassination attempt, which was later confirmed to have been orchestrated by the eldest master. His intentions extended beyond the second master. He sought to eliminate everyone within the prince's household. Once apprehended, the madman's ravings revealed that he had secretly pledged allegiance to another prince, conspiring against the crown prince, a transgression that warranted the annihilation of his entire clan. The prince acted decisively, imprisoning the eldest master under strict surveillance, seemingly intent on ensuring he would languish in confinement until death. No one anticipated that the eldest madam would seize this opportunity to set the eldest master ablaze. She even ignited a fire outside my chamber. The smoke enveloped me, rendering my breath shallow, my chest aching as if it might split apart. In that moment, I was transported back to a time when death loomed near. Just before succumbing, it seemed as though someone burst in to rescue me. "Pearl, Pearl, wake up. Pearl." I struggled, gently prying open my eyes, only to find the second master before me. My body was marred by burns, yet I had been granted a second chance at life. The eldest master was undeniably dead, leaving no trace behind, save for a hasty burial. Due to my severe illness, I was excused from attending the eldest master's funeral. I could hardly muster the pretense of grief, feeling disdain for any expression of sorrow. After the eldest master was hastily interred, the eldest madam was sentenced to execution, with a date for her punishment to be determined. Once all had concluded, the second master took me to seek medical attention for the scars left by the flames. I inquired about affairs in the capital, noting that the new emperor awaited his return to manage state matters. He kissed me gently. "First, let us heal our ailments. I wish for us to return in splendid fashion, allowing you to become the envy of all as Madame Pearl." So it was decided. We traversed the mountains and waters, seeking physicians along the way. My visage was restored, though his leg remained unhealed. I harbored no disdain for him. Despite his disability, he cherished me with unwavering devotion for decades. As he grew weary from the burdens of state affairs, he resigned from his position, returning to spend his final years by my side. In his last moments, he grasped my hand, trembling as he inquired, "Pearl, have you found happiness in this life?" With tears in my eyes, I nodded. He smiled. "Then it is well. I have finally made amends for my past transgressions." Tears cascaded down my cheeks uncontrollably. In his final breath, he murmured, "I am sorry. In the past life, I wronged you." I widened my eyes, poised to respond, yet he closed his eyes forever. After Yun Jiai's passing, I felt an unparalleled stillness envelop my days. He had conferred upon me the title of lady, ensuring that in my later years, I would ascend to the esteemed position of Lady Chuanfu. Many families, celebrating joyous occasions, sought my assistance in styling their daughters' hair. Each time I wove their tresses, I was reminded of my wedding night with Yun Jai. He had delicately removed my phoenix crown, combing my hair with tender care while reciting the words, "One comb to the end. 2 combs, hair as white as brows." Yet I did not share with him the same white-haired fate. As I gazed upon the newlyweds before me, I was transported back to the past, envisioning myself and Yun Jai. Silently, I wished, in the next life. Perhaps, thoughts of him lingered throughout the day. That night, I dreamt of Yun Jai, his gentle smile gracing his face as he made a promise, "If there is a next life, I shall strive to live longer, ensuring my Pearl is never alone." The end of the tale. Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next story.